Support for Connecticut East This Week comes from the Connecticut Technology Council, presenting the 19th Annual Women in Innovation Awards, Tuesday, October 22nd in Branford, honouring outstanding women in the STEM fields. To learn more and to purchase tickets for the event, visit ct.org/Women of Innovation. Nutmeg Pharmacy, reminding you to get your flu, COVID and RSV vaccinations now to protect you and your loved ones. Visit us in Higganum, Moodus, Centrebrook, Taffill and New London, and at our website at nutmegpharmacy.com. And Media Here and Now, a full-service content creation agency producing video, audio, podcasts, and digital content for social media, online, and broadcast use for all types of businesses, organizations, and non-profits. Find out more at mediahereandnow.com. It's National Hispanic Heritage Month, and we talked to two Connecticut College students about their award-winning short film about an Hispanic student seeking acceptance and navigating life. Plus, we take a look at other stories making the headlines from around the region. This is Connecticut East This Week. Hello, I'm Brian Scott Smith. It's coming to the end of National Hispanic Heritage Month. The annual observance is an opportunity to celebrate the achievements, histories, traditions, diversity, and vibrant culture of Hispanic and Latino Americans. And what better way to do that than to highlight the award-winning achievements of two Connecticut College film students who took on the challenge to showcase how being from one culture and being accepted by not only that culture but others can often place individuals in a difficult position of how they seek acceptance while staying true to themselves and their heritage. I spoke with filmmakers Ryan Rivera and Yasmin Tomey about their 10-minute short film called Those Who Don't, that follows an Hispanic student character seeking acceptance and navigating life at a predominantly white educational institution. Before we get to that interview, here's the opening scene to Those Who Don't.
Spanish Immersion Day. I'm not ready for a Mecha event. We haven't finished reading the book.
Your Spanish is getting better, Ignacio. You might just outgrow being a no sabo kid.
Stop calling me that. That got old years ago. And anyways, reading is different than talking.
Reading is a start. Vamos, let's go finish reading it.
Ryan and Yasmin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
So two members of Connecticut College. Ryan, you're currently there. Yasmin, you recently graduated. Before we get into what we're going to be talking about today, which is about a film that you both created called Those Who Don't, talk to us a little bit about your backgrounds. Like I said, Ryan, you're currently at Connecticut College. You're what's called a Posse Scholar. Explain to us what that is.
So Posse is a scholarship program where they essentially take like a group of 11 students, whether they're first gen or people of color from like New York City, and they get like a scholarship to go to one of the Posse colleges. So Connecticut College was one of the Posse colleges, and that's how I'm able to attend.
So how did you get that? Just explain a little bit about your background
process.
Again. Yeah.
Okay. So when I was 16, I was offered by my guidance counselor this opportunity. She said that you have like a really high GPA, and she said that I should go for it because she thinks I'll do well on it. So throughout the summer of 2020, when it was all Zoom, I did like 3 waves of Zoom calls where you were put in a room with other students who were also going for Posse, and they just try to see how you mesh well with each other, because the point of Posse is you're creating a support system. So when I came to Con as a first year and a person of color, I already had like friends that I could already like hang out with, and I didn't feel alone on campus.
And where do you come from originally?
So I'm from Brooklyn, New York. So I'm from New York City.
And Yasmin, tell us a little bit about your background as well. As we said, you have graduated with high honors from Connecticut College with a Bachelor's of Arts in Film Studies and also Italian Studies. How did you get to College, and how did you and Ryan meet up?
So I'm an international student. I was born and raised in Lebanon. My mother just knew of many liberal arts colleges colleges and knew that it was a well-rounded experience. And both of my two older sisters also attended liberal arts colleges. So I knew that, and I visited their campuses and saw how fulfilling the experience was. So I decided that I would like to do the same thing. And that's how I landed on Con. Actually, my sister attended there as well a few years before me. So that's how it happened. And I knew of Ryan. We took a couple of classes together, but when we took the class film 310, you had to be paired up. And at that point, I had studied abroad and I took classes at a different pace than everyone else in the class. So I didn't as much of a film relationship with anybody, but I knew of them, of course. And Ryan reached out to me and asked if we could pair up. And it was a very easy process to pair up with Ryan. And we were on the same page most of the time. So that was very nice.
So we're talking to you both today about a short film that both of you came up with, created, called Those Who Don't.
So while creating this process, we did this for a class project and it was called Film 310. And the basic premise is you create a story about a representational group that you've seen in media and you try to create a positive spin. So with that in mind, we were looking at ideas we want to work on, and both of us talked about our experiences being people of color in a PWI, a predominantly white institution. I think topics that we both connected to was at times your own community can sometimes be your worst enemy or like someone who's not really there to support you. So we really tapped into it with Those Who Don't. When Ignacio, he's nervous about speaking Spanish because he feels that, his Spanish is not perfect, so he may not fit in. When the creating process of Those Who Don't, we really focused on Hispanic representation and how they could be seen in the forefront rather than the side character to a white protagonist.
So tell us a little bit as well, because often they say that when you write things, you use parts of your own experiences. Those Who Don't, as we say, it's a 10-minute film about Ignacio, as you say, a Hispanic student seeking acceptance and navigating life at a predominantly white institution. How much of that storyline represent maybe instances in your life that happened?
With my experiences, I remember when I first came to Con, I met Hispanic people. They were more fluent than me in Spanish. So then when they would say something and I didn't catch on or respond back in Spanish, they were like, "Oh, you don't know Spanish? What's wrong with you?" And when people would say stuff like that, it was like, wow, even my own community could be a little judgmental. So when creating the story, I pulled a lot from that experience of wow, you're kind of the odd one out in your own community. And even when I try to befriend people in different communities outside my own, I still didn't feel like I connected as much. So I feel Those Who Don't, a lot of it from my experience, I use a lot of it from my experience in the sense of what communities can you connect with?
Yes, so obviously I had a different experience than Ryan, but in the end, the outcome of the feeling was pretty similar. So obviously I'm Arab, but to some people's eyes, I don't have the features that some people would determine to assume that I'm Arab. I'm white passing, as we can say, until I start speaking and people catch on that I have an accent. And so I felt a way of not being validated that I'm Arab enough at times, or even when I would spend so much time away from home, especially in a PWI and liberal arts college where there aren't many international students, let alone Arab students, I don't have much space to practice my Arabic. And so when I would go home, it would just be a bit rusty for about a week and I would be made fun of for it. And so I always was stuck in this limbo of, I guess, too Western to the Arab cultures and then not Western enough in Western spaces. And I felt very awkward in between with both. And so I guess I would relate with Ignacio, the main character, in terms of the feelings, but not the way we got there. And we sort of tapped into Ryan's experience a bit more. And I sat down with one of my very close friends who's a person of color at the same school, and we spoke about how he didn't feel like he fit the stereotypical student of color in a PWI. And we brainstormed out of the three experiences together and built something out of that.
One thing I want to pick up with both of you, having watched the 10-minute short, the main character, Ignacio, sort of has a little bit of a disagreement with a very close female friend of his, and she constantly refers to him as a no sabo kid. Ryan, explain to us what that is, because it is important in this particular piece, isn't it?
Yes, it is. This is a great question. So a no sabo kid is essentially, it's very rooted in the Hispanic community, but it's a play on the idea that, you know, you're a Hispanic kid and you don't know Spanish. So in Spanish, the correct way of saying like I don't know is no sé. But when you with saber, it's irregular conjugation. So when you mess it up, it's like no sabo. So that's where the no sabo kid comes from. It's an incorrect conjugation of the way of saying I don't know. And it's important to the story just because it's showing like ways that Hispanic people can bring each other down with these comments of like, you're a no sabo kid, you don't know Spanish.
Talk to us as well about the fact that you had to obviously get a budget together for this. You had to get a team of people. You got some actors. I believe that the lead who plays Ignacio is also a Posse scholar.
Yasmin and I kind of divided and conquered. So we both asked people we knew. So with Kian, I knew him because of Posse. So I used my Posse network and asked, you know, people within my Posse space if they would want to either act in it or be a crew member. That's also how we got Joaquin Morales because he's in Posse Chicago. And then with the budget, we did a GoFundMe video. So we created a video asking people if they would be so kind enough to just donate whatever funds they had to us. And once we got a certain amount of funds, we started to budget out how much we'll use for food, how much we use for film festivals, how much we use for props. So a lot of it came down to just seeing what we had and working with what we had to create the film that we made.
How did you feel it came out, both of you, you know, when all was said and done? What were your thoughts about it once it was finished? And how long did it take to actually, you know, from start to finish to do the project?
We started brainstorming December of 2023, and we had to have at least a first draft by the start of classes in January. And so the script took about 2 months till we locked it down. And then we had to bring everybody together, all cast and crew, all funds, all locations, timing, anything we could possibly need. And then the filming process began in April after spring break, and we shot it in a span of 3 days, I'm pretty sure.
We did like a reshoot, so that's like our third day.
And everyone on set was just so wonderful, so collaborative. It was a great experience altogether to work with people your age towards a film that everybody cared about. The most important scene, the climax of the film, which we are very grateful that we had the time to do it, and it was in my apartment, so the location wasn't any trouble, and everyone was kind enough to hop back onto the project and do it really fast. We only had less than a month to edit the whole thing, which is absolutely not enough. We had many sleepless nights, but it was very well worth it to see how everything went about. And I'm personally very critical of my work, especially with narrative film compared to documentaries. So by the time the screening happened, I felt that my heart was beating out of my chest because it's this entire room filled. It's everybody that you know and everybody who knows everybody on screen. And it was very well received. I was definitely nervous though, and it's been very overwhelmingly reassuring and nice to see that we're getting a good response for the film festivals and such.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a moment. I just want to quickly ask Ryan, I mean, and also you, Yasmin, was this the first time that both of you had done a project like this? Yasmin, you've mentioned about documentaries, so I'm guessing this was this possibly the first time that you've done something like this?
I studied abroad in Prague the year before that, so spring of 2023, and I co-wrote and directed a short film with a group of people. So it wasn't my first, but it was definitely something about identity and the person of color. And a lot of responsibility came with that because our class was called Ideological Representation in Film, and we had to do a presentation about all the research we had done. So it wasn't anything just based on Ryan and I's experience. We researched articles as well about students of color and their experiences in PWIs. And although I was a student of color, I'm not Latina or from the culture, so I really wanted to try to pay as much respect as I could as possible, and Ryan was such an incredible amount of support and resource for me. So that type of film definitely is new for me.
So this is my first time doing a big project from this like large scale where we spent a whole semester developing one project and doing a budget and doing a bunch of casting. The semester before, I did a documentary production class where you make 3 documentaries in a semester, which can get a little hectic because you're relying on working with real people and working with those deadlines. And then spring of 23, when Yasmin was abroad, I was doing Film 210. You just start making movies. It's like a production class, and you make 3 mini films. So every like 4 to 5 weeks, you're creating like a new film where you have to create a new script. You're working with a different team. So what I really like about 310 is that you actually got time to develop this project and not have to feel like you're rushing. That was my experience with filmmaking prior to this project.
Yasmin mentioned about film awards. This past summer, film won Best Student Film in the Latin Hispanic category of the Indie Film Fest Awards in California. But not only that, it also was awarded Best Student Film at Indie House in Spain. Talk to us about that, because those are two major achievements, but that is just superb recognition, isn't it?
It was a magical day. Like, I just remember opening up my email and it was like, congratulations, you won. And my mom was right next to me and I was like, Mom, I won. And then I immediately just text Yasmin because I was like, we did it. Because it was just, I've submitted to Film Freeway before, but I've always got like the, oh, not selected, or it just didn't work out. So the fact that we won 2 festivals was just insane to me. And then recently we were a finalist for the US-Mexico Kaleidoscope Festival, which was really exciting because it's a binational festival, like part of it was in Mexico and part of it's in America. So it's really exciting seeing how far this film's going and how many people are just like enjoying this project.
I mean, I think I'm very grateful to Ryan, who wanted to take the reins on being the email receiver of everything. So I would just look forward to whenever I would get a text from him, because I knew it had something to do with whether we got selected or film award. And it just feels incredibly rewarding. And I'm very happy that we budgeted enough, because we weren't going to budget that much towards film festivals. And then our assistant director, Virgil, had told us and recommended us to put more money into it. And I'm really grateful that we did, because it's just really overwhelmingly it's just nice to see that people are responding well to the film and that it's more impactful than I ever thought it was going to be. So yeah.
Yeah, these things aren't cheap, but it's so important to get this type of work out there. And as you say, it does take budget to do that. What do you hope that obviously audiences will take away from this film?
What I hope that people take away from this film is that you do have a space wherever you go. No matter what your environment is, there's always somewhere you could look up to, or there's always a community there. You just have to really take the time to really go out there and just be yourself, and don't change because because society wants you to.
Yeah, I think one thing that I personally don't see enough in mainstream media, and which is precisely why this class was invented, was I don't see enough of imposter syndrome in people of color, let alone students of color, and especially in a PWI. And it felt very refreshing for me and Ryan to turn this film into therapy, almost kind of heal our inner child and heal the part of ourselves that may feel imposter syndrome or invalidated for our experience and for the way that we express our identity, because it is just who you are and there's no right way to be your identity. And there's just so much that goes into breaking stereotypes and showing how four-dimensional a human being can be, and that they're not just a label that you can tick off. So I definitely that you're not alone, and that imposter syndrome is real, and that it's a very valid feeling.
Final question to you both, and thank you so much for your time. Where do you both go from here? Like we said, Yasmin, we know that you've graduated. Just give us a quick idea of what's next for both of you.
So yeah, I just graduated and I spent the summer in Morocco at a documentary outreach program where I was a cinematographer, and that was an amazing experience. And I'm now fully based in London for the next year or two at least, looking for work within the film industry, and hopefully I'll land on my feet soon. So,
well, congratulations on that. And Ryan?
So I'm a senior now, which is crazy to say because it's like, where did the time go? And I'm taking a documentary class with Professor Sue Friedrich, who is this well-renowned film person in the documentary world. So she does a lot of experimental documentary. So I'm working on a project about how you can trace history through clothing and how it has a sentimental impact on people. And then in the spring of my last semester of college, I'll be doing a 400 level film class, which is similar to 310, which was the class Yasmin and I did, but now it's at a 400 level. So it has more, it's more of like has more senior seminar elements to it.
Well, we wish both of you continued success as you advance in your careers in the media world. The film, Those Who Don't, is a great 10-minute film, and I hope lots of people get to watch it, and continued success as well with the awards, having won 2, and let's hope it receives many more accolades. But to you both, thanks ever so much for sharing everything about this process yourselves and also this amazing 10-minute film, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. It's truly an honor.
And if you want to watch the film Those Who Don't for yourself, then head over to the Connecticut East This Week Facebook page, where we've posted a link to the film for you. Connecticut East This Week is made possible by the Connecticut Technology Council, recognizing STEM fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics as critical to Connecticut's economy, providing jobs, careers, and business opportunities. Help celebrate the leadership of 45 outstanding women in STEM as we honor them at the 19th Annual Women of Innovation Awards event on Tuesday, October 22nd in Branford. Hear winners' inspiring stories and how these dynamic women are leading the way forward. Learn more at ct.gov/women of innovation. Nutmeg Pharmacy, reminding you it's flu season. Get your flu, COVID, and RSV vaccinations now and protect you and your loved ones. We are a full-service, independent pharmacy group providing prescriptions, over-the-counter medications, and more, plus free local delivery from our locations in Higganum, Moodus, Centerbrook, Taftville, and New London. Find out more about us and our services at nutmegpharmacy.com. And Media Here and Now is a full-service content creation agency based in Eastern Connecticut and producing video, audio, podcasts, and digital content for social media, online, and broadcast use for all types of businesses, organizations, and nonprofits. If you need a new company video or radio advert or want to start your own podcast, then get in touch and see how we can help you at mediahereandnow.com. Time now for a look at other stories making the headlines this week. Connecticut Shoreline East train service now has 5 additional trains that have started service as part of a $5 million state-funded increase to its service generally. The train service, which runs from New London and through to Stamford, started to suffer a decline in ridership in 2018 due to Amtrak rail track projects and a lack of locomotives to pull the trains, and then was hit by the COVID pandemic in 2019. State Senator Christine Cohen chairs the state's transportation committee and said although they didn't manage to secure the funding they wanted for a 100% return to service, these additional trains will help with future negotiations.
What's really great about this is it was a bipartisan effort to bring our beloved Shoreline East train line back to its former pre-pandemic glory. We really want to see more riders on the trains taking advantage of fast and efficient service, and expanding Shoreline East in the wake of some budget cuts that we experienced just a couple of years ago has been a number one priority.
The money for the increased train service came from American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funding and will only last for around a year or more. Susan Feaster is the founder of the Shoreline East Riders Advocacy Group and uses the train service on a daily basis to get to her job, and said even before the announcement, she has seen ridership on the train service increasing.
The other day I tweeted out that when I got on the train in New Haven at State Street, the conductor announced that the train is full. Please be prepared to move your personal belongings and let someone sit next to you. That proves that people are riding this train. On this Northeast corridor, we're not just a few towns that people are working from home. As you can see from all the cars out here, people are using this train line. I can attest to it.
House Bill 5330 that was passed in this year's legislative session requires the state's Department of Transportation to come up with at least 5 alternatives for restoring full service to Shoreline East and the cost of each possibility. The Connecticut Department of Transportation previously stated the train service had not received full funding like the Hartford or Waterbury lines, as there wasn't sufficient ridership to warrant the investment. Connecticut State Treasurer Eric Russell was the keynote speaker at the recent Government Finance Officers Association of Connecticut Fall Conference, where he also addressed members of the Connecticut Public Pension Forum as well. Russell, who has only been in office since 2023, said his office was different to other state agencies in that their work was not about just one budget cycle, but much longer longer term, looking out 5 to 10 years.
What's unique about that is we're able to really think about how we want to shape the long-term future of Connecticut. Again, a lot of this is work around pension fund investments or big infrastructure projects in our state, but it's also about how we are building an economy in our state that's more inclusive and creating more opportunity, where we can implement fiscal policy that is going to benefit us all long term.
Russell spoke about existing and new economic initiatives, but the main discussion was around the state's historic pension fund debt. Russell said they're continuing to invest heavily and even have a date when they will close that pension gap.
And as we continue to make this progress, I think this is something that the legislature will evaluate on an ongoing basis around how much of a priority solely our pension fund needs to be. Do we need to split what those additional contributions are going toward at some point? But 2048 is where we are. Obviously, as we make these additional contributions with strong performance, our goal is to reduce that amount of time that it takes for us to get there.
Russell said the state is in a better financial position now than it was just 5 years ago due to strong investments and the fiscal guardrails put in place by the Lamont administration, saying by the end of 2024, the state will have paid an additional $8.5 billion into the state's unfunded pension liability, helping to save hundreds of millions of dollars for Connecticut taxpayers on an annual basis. Russell also discussed a new initiative, the Firefighters Cancer Relief Fund, which provides the state's municipalities with money to compensate their local firefighters diagnosed with cancer as a result of their job. The fund currently stands at over $7.5 million. It was Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids Week recently. The annual initiative is held every first full week of October and highlights partnerships between local schools and local farms. Connecticut's Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz keynoted a kickoff event recently at Beaman Middle School in Middletown.
There are a lot of schools that could benefit from seeing some of these farms, and actually there's a bunch of farms right here in Middletown and nearby. And the goal of our Farm to Table program is to get students learning more about farms, healthy eating, and how important farms are to our economy.
Esther Cario is a student at Beaman Middle School and one of their school food critics, and said trying out new foods and learning about where food comes from is important.
We help with getting the food to students, and we tell them, oh, you should try this. It's a new dish in the community. And we tell them to give us a review and see if they like it or not. And let me tell you, we are so excited to have the Farm to School come to Beaman. Whatever it takes to have healthier snacks and foods and whatever. It's good for the body, isn't it? So let me tell you, anyone can become a Beaman food critic and help us make the day better one dish at a time.
The event also announced nearly $80,000 in new microgrant awards for 19 recipient municipalities to help encourage local farm-to-school initiatives involving student farm visits, as well as tasting events and educational activities. Local farms across the state can also benefit by having a contract with their local school that can help create a stable income, especially for new and beginning farmers. And if you like shopping at the pop-up Spirit Halloween shops that appear each year around the state for your spooky costumes and Halloween party decor, then good news for everyone living in the eastern part of the state, as the company behind Spirit will be extending 10 shops across the northeast into Spirit Christmas stores for everything Christmassy. Spencer Gifts, the company that owns Spirit, have confirmed their Spirit Halloween store at the Crystal Mall in Waterford in southeastern Connecticut will be one of the new Christmas stores this year, the only one in Connecticut. Once Halloween is over, the store will close briefly as it's changed over to its Christmas decor and will reopen in November, selling Christmas gifts, presents and decor, as well as having a full-size gingerbread village inside and the chance to get a photo with Santa. You can find more details and book your Santa photo now at spiritchristmas.com. That's all from us for this edition. Do send us your questions and story ideas to the show via our website at connecticut-east.com or Facebook or Twitter at Connecticut East and on Instagram at Connecticut East This Week. And you can listen to the show again on our social platforms, on demand, and by asking your smart speaker to play Connecticut East This Week podcast. And please like, follow, and share on your social media too. I'm Brian Scott Smith. Thank you for listening.